All right, Neil, why don't you do an intro for us? Help us get started with this today's amazing class.
Hello, sir. Welcome to a Sustainable Design Masterclass. Uh, I'm Neil Spagman. I'm from Saudi Arabia. We've got Raleigh Latham and Wayne Dorband with us as well. Wayne has been collaborating with us from the very beginning of doing this because we needed to switch our software, and Wayne has been kind enough to share his with us. This is our first webinar of 2017. We've got some really cool folks lined up for this year. And I wanted to just touch on what I want to focus on this year. We've got some massive transitions going on with you folks. The folks we've heard from, many of you are on land, many of you are trying to get on the land, and everybody is trying to be sustainable and profitable. And that's what we're going to be focusing on this year are the finance, ways to do business on this, ways to manage such that you can get on land or such that you can be managing your land in the best possible way. Today, Wayne is coming to us from on the slopes of the Rockies. And if this is your first webinar you're tuning into with us, you can check us out on sustainabledesignmasterclass.com. If you sign up for our email list, then you will get announcements on when we're holding these webinars on a weekly basis. And I'm going to turn this over to Raleigh, who was recently at Wayne's place and who's going to introduce today's webinar.
All right. Thanks, Neil, for the introduction. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun week ahead. We got Lane Ingham, on all these great guests. We're reaching out to some really big names like Billy Smits, Paul Stamets. We're trying to get them on because now we can we have some funds to pay some cool speakers. So I am really stoked to have Wayne Dorband on to join us. I met Wayne at Permaculture Voices 2 3 years ago, and he was really on it about all these different aspects of permaculture entrepreneurship. And we've talked maybe once a month for a few years, and I just been blown away. He's just a fountain of knowledge because he's been doing this for so long, almost 4 decades. And what was so interesting is I grew up near Gun Barrel near Boulder, Colorado, as a kid, and I didn't know that Wayne's Ranch was only 30 minutes away from where I grew up. And coming from a place like Colorado where it's so dry, where you have years of just extreme drought, visiting Wayne's Ranch was mind-blowing because I saw a completely restored wetlands in the middle of the desert, in the middle of places where it's so dry. Wayne is somebody that truly talks his talk, walks his walk, and he's been on this journey for 40 years. It's incredible. His ranch has so many different streams of permaculture income, from aquaculture to alpacas, dog training, farming, chickens. It just blew my mind, all these amazing things working together. And above it, he's got 18 ponds that weave together in a system over 160 acres, and he's creating an amazing aquaculture system from it. And I was just blown away, and I think you're all going to be really impressed by the information he has to share today, because it's just going to be an amazing case study for what's possible in a dry area like Colorado. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Wayne, and also make sure to turn off your background programs, turn off your Facebook, turn off your news feed, because you don't want any of that stuff interrupting you. Oh, and before I turn it over, also, Wayne's going to do his pitch for his program, the Economic Action Team, and he's going to do a pitch for his aquaculture program that he's launching, which is going to be fantastic. So that's going to happen right after his presentation. So I'm going to turn this over to Wayne, and we're going to get started.
Hey, Raleigh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, everybody. I'm going to take my screen here and you're going to have to tell me if you're seeing the right thing, Raleigh. I've got a couple.
It doesn't say quite yet. It says, wait, there we go. Now you're there.
Okay, so are we seeing the big screen that says water security and aquaculture? There we go. Yep. Looks like we are. All right. So you see the title here, Water Security and Aquaculture in the High Desert. And some people wouldn't call where we live the high desert, but when you get 12 to 13 inches, maybe some years 10 of rainfall, that's considered a desert. And we're in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, and I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures, and actually some taken today. And it should be the middle of winter here, and it's going to be 65 today. And that's why I decided I'm going to go out and see if I can show them some things literally right like it looks today. And it looks very dry today, but still you'll see a real difference between what it looks like here today and on my property, and I actually took some of some neighbors' property that looks a little different than mine. So we'll show some of that contrast. And I've got a little presentation. You see some slides in the background, and as Raleigh said, I'm going to talk for about 35, 40 minutes, maybe a little more, and then I'm just going to give you about a 10-minute description of some things that we've got to offer. And then we'll go some Q&A. I'll stay as long as you want for answering questions, anything you've got. Raleigh asked about visits. We have a pretty cool place, and we have people visiting us all the time. And all we ask is that somebody gets a hold of us ahead of time and lets us know that they want to come. And we've got people here all the time. So anyway, we'll start with that. So I'm going to go ahead and go through some slides. So I've already introduced myself, Wayne Dorband here, and I represent a couple of entities. They're both associated with each other. The Institute of Ecolonomics, that's a weird word, and I'll talk a little more about it, and the Ecolonomic Action Team that has an acronym each. The Institute of Ecolonomics is a 501c3 nonprofit, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. And the two pictures you see are me in front of some place and me in an aquaculture situation. So I like to start out and sort of let you know what you might be hearing. And I'm going to just say, how would you like to learn how to take a dry and grossly overgrazed cattle pasture and turn it into a $75,000 per year income stream doing what you love to do? So if you'd like that, put some ones over into the question area. I'm not looking at it, so Raleigh and others. I've got Mark that's helping. By the way, Mark, thank you so much, man. I think Reed might be helping also. So these guys are helping us kind of look at the question. So if you'd like that, you're going to like this presentation because that's what's been done here. And you're looking at a picture over here on the right, which I wish those dumpsters were in the picture. This was taken early this summer, right before they get taken out. This is one of 18 ponds. This is actually probably a half a mile away from that pond where this picture's taken, because it's looking down on the top of some of our livestock enclosure. It makes it look like these things are right next to the pond. That is easily a quarter mile between the edge of that building and the pond. It'll show you how pictures make things look different. So I'm going to just set a little context for this. We live in a time where people really want to achieve value in their lives, I think. And I think you're here because that's what you want to do. So that's kind of what economics is. And so we use that word, and it's kind of pronounced ecology and economy, so it's economics. And it is the synergy between ecology and economy. And the word was created by this guy here. And again, I'd love for you to throw it in there if you know, if you've ever seen him, because if you have, you're an old person like me. Dennis, unfortunately, died about 10 years ago, actually coming on a 10th anniversary of his death in March. He was a really good friend of mine, and I'll talk a little more about that. But Dennis invented this word, economics, in the early 1990s. And Dennis wasn't just an actor, and really, I'll give a bonus to somebody if you put in the oldest show you can think of that maybe he was in. Some of you guys might get it. And he invented the word, and then he started the Institute of Economics in 1993. And our goal is really simple, and that's to help people make a little bit of money. And that's important to say a little bit, not some fortune, literally something appropriate. Helping people make the planet better. So the key is it's helping entrepreneurs, ecopreneurs as we call them, to do things that will make the planet better. So we believe that the best word to describe the kinds of things that you'll hear all the time is economics. So when you hear things like regenerative, restorative, holistic, sustainable, green. By the way, most of the pictures you're going to see are here on my ranch. They're in different times of the year. one over at the right is at a market farm location we have on the ranch, and that's probably in May. As you can see, the grasses are just coming up and it's starting to get green. So I'm just going to give you a little context here. If you were to look at our history of mankind, sort of on this line, let's see here, we started out for a long period of time probably where people were hunter-gatherers, and then they started doing some farming. And the reality is it was probably pretty much in harmony with nature. A long time into the future, probably 2,000 years ago or so, you started to see local farming develop that was much more in concert with community, with bigger towns probably. And there was starting to be some degradation of the planet at that point, but not a lot. And that continued until only about 200 years ago. When about 200 years ago is when we started industrial farming. And that kind of corresponded with the Industrial Revolution, with industrial commerce. And I'm probably exaggerating just a tiny bit, but that's when mass ecosystem destruction began, just 200 years ago, really. Before that, pretty much everything on the left was happening. But I'm excited because I think the reason you guys are here today, the reason I'm here today, is that we're moving into a revolution. We're moving into a time of regenerative living and farming and industry, and we just choose to call that economics. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So in this new economic era, and that's what we're going to say we're in, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. So let's just talk a little bit about what's going to happen with those winners and losers. Let's start with the winners. Winners are going to be thinking about triple bottom line: profit, people, planet. Winners are going to have appropriate living standards, not too much, not too little. I'm going to change it a little bit now. I'm going to put us into this. So we're going to be stewards of this earth, and our job is to preserve it and enhance it, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. So let's talk about the losers a little bit. The losers are those that are going to really just think about profit for shareholders today. Do you know anybody like that? They're going to think about personal gain first, and then maybe, if there's some room, gain for others. And here's the one that really bothers me. They kind of think that all creatures are here only for the benefit of mankind. To me, that's what the losers think. So what's the common thread among all these winners? And this, again, it's a bias. You could pick another word in here, put regenerative era. But they're finding ways to embrace the economic era. So let's talk about how you can do that also, or how you maybe already are. So Raleigh's already done this. I'm just going to quickly go through this. Kind of what we're going to do today. Turn off your distractions and if you can, focus. I'm going to give you a glimpse of the way you can become a winner on a creative ecological aquaculture situation for about 35 or 40 minutes. I'm going to show you how some direct evidence of some other people like you are benefiting now. Quite honestly, I'll tell you right now, I'm probably going to get a little emotional. I've got an email. It turned out we were probably showing an email before we started. We didn't realize the screen was on. I don't really care because it's an amazing email that I got yesterday, and it related to an email I got 2 days ago. I'm just going to show that to you because it shows you what I think that people can do. And then at the end, as Raleigh said, I'm going to spend about 10 minutes, not more than that, talking about an offer that we have that will maybe help you do some other things economically, regenerative, restoratively in this new era. Throw in some questions whenever you want them. Sometimes I'll answer them during a presentation. Today I'm going to wait till the end. So Mark is there helping, Raleigh's there. You just put them in there. They'll make sure that I answer them. And just every topic it's open, you do whatever, whatever hits you. Just make those fingers be moving and put some questions. If you stick around to the end, I've got a couple of pretty cool bonuses. And you go, well, how do you know whether I stick around? We actually get metrics, so we know how long people stay on. So if you stick around to the end, I'll give you some other stuff. So just a little more on a context here. And I had another phone call. I hope that's not distractive right now. So people know that we've spent thousands of years and billions of dollars screwing the planet up. We know that natural resources are finite. By the way, what do you think that is over on the right? Put it into the chat. It's either one of two things, and I'll tell you what it is in a minute. But we know that natural resources are finite, and they won't be there for future generations if we don't manage them right. That's a clear cut over there. And it's the black and white, but that's literally, if you look at that picture, you'd see that for miles and miles. We're sick and tired of getting our food from thousands of miles away. Here in the United States, we get our food from an average of 1,500 to 2,000 miles away. Clean water for drinking, and this is a fact that some people don't know. Clean water for drinking is not available to more than 1 billion people worldwide. Our land management practices are degrading land so fast that it doesn't even appear that we really care. There's a worldwide statistic. I'm going to give another one here for actually land lost, but the worldwide statistic is 80,000 acres a day are being lost for any kind of productive use in the short term. Climate change is undeniable. Yep, I said undeniable. I know that's not what they might think to the east of me a little ways. And within 20 years, the consequences are going to be catastrophic. So I could go on a lot more, but I'm just going to give you a couple little things here. And this is kind of more issues for the losers. Throw in some ones if you know what I said. What I'm saying here is if you think it's true. There are less than 4 days of food available in any major city in the world if transportation from the outside was stopped. So if you live in an urban area and transportation stopped, they couldn't get planes, trains, automobiles in 4 days you'd be starving. It's happened recently. Go back and do a Google search for Mongolia in 2012. There were 200,000 people that were killed in food riots because of the food shortage that they had. We're losing 200 square kilometers of land a day to forest degradation. That's 36,000 acres. I talked about 80,000. That's the total, but this is just the forest land. We're not going to have enough water in the grain belt. That's North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, all the way down south of the United States in less than 30 years. And forget about this corn and wheat, but just to produce the food that that part of the world produces today. And it's the primary grain food belt of the United States. So I went one slide too quick. I'm going to back up one there. So I'm going to start doing some teaching now and weave in my ranch, weave in what I do, weave in the really cool stuff that Raleigh said a little bit earlier. I'm going to teach you about 5 ecological keys that you can use to improve water security for yourself and possibly create an ongoing income stream doing things that you love. So here goes. I'm going to go through those 5 quickly first, and then I'm going to go back through them, and I'm going to start showing some pictures and other things. So the first one is history and observation. Observe your location carefully, wherever you're at, and be thinking about this where you live. And this could be that you live in an apartment, because it could be on your deck, or it could be in a park that's in your town, or if it's your yard, it could be your backyard. You don't have to live on a large acreage. Observe your location carefully and be as creative as you can be to develop a plan that builds on what historically was and what it could be now. This picture over here is stagnant water. You look at it and you go, that's awful. I don't know how I can build on that. Well, that's not the way it historically was. Most people would look at that stagnant water. By the way, that was on my property 10 years ago. And they'd go, that's awful. I don't know how I can ever turn that into anything. Research the past. This is an order of things. You should research what happened previously. Observe now in the context of the past, not the current. That's why that picture is relevant. Here's what people normally do. They observe first, then they go research. Now, I'm not saying that you should just ignore what you see if you're looking at a new property, let's say, or you've got your own property now. But before you go a whole lot further, go back and research the past. And I'm going to talk about some ways you can do that. creatively vision, model, and design the future. So that's the next step that you're going to do. So that's all of key number 1. Key number 2, construct by failing forward. Whoa, guy's talking about failing. I don't want to fail. Nothing wrong with failing. Failure is quitting. Failing is just making some mistakes and then learning from them and doing something different. We're going to talk more about that. Be Thomas Edisonian as you construct your design. So we're moving here from planning in key number 1 to now what a construction process would be in key number 2. Think about what your outcome will be for generations in the future. And this one, boy, a lot of people don't believe this. I'm going to weave a little personal story in now. Ecological systems are much more resilient than they're portrayed. So here's a little personal, quick story. I grew up in Southern California, but my whole family, my father's, all of his relatives and all that lived in Chicago. And we used to go to visit them in Chicago every year. When I was 5 years old, I pretty vividly remember my grandfather taking me out on what's called the Waukegan Pier and going fishing for yellow perch. And we had what was called a trot line system, which is picture a barrel, like a 5-gallon bucket, with a whole bunch of hooks on a line that you would put down into the water. And there was a bell on the top of that bucket. And whenever a fish would bite, the bell would ring. I was a 5-year-old. As soon as that bell rang, I said, Grandpa, let's pull the fish up. And he said, no, be patient. And the bell would have to ring probably 10, 12 times. I don't even know how many hooks he had on. And then all of a sudden, we'd pull them up, and we had perch. Fishing was amazing. I just really remember that. Fast forward about 6 or 7 years. I'm now in my 11, 12-year-old time frame. I come back there again. Reports in the newspapers, lake on fire, Lake Michigan dead. It'll never come back again. Pollutants are creating a horrible situation. It's dead. Well, you go out to that same pier, and there was a gate at the front of it that wouldn't let you out anymore. You looked in the water, and there were these fish called alewives that look like sardines, about that big, and they're just covering the shoreline because they've washed in, because they've all died. And they're literally, this lake is what many people would say was dead. It was not productive any longer. Fast forward another 6 or 7 years. Now I'm 19 years old, and I'm in between my freshman and sophomore years. Sophomore and junior years in college. And I come back through. And I hadn't been paying a lot of attention to Waukegan since. And now, my grandfather, unfortunately, has died. Now I go down to that same pier, and I see a big sign that says, Salmon Capital. What? This is the dead lake. So go out on the pier, and there's people fishing, and they're catching salmon and steelhead trout that are 18 inches, 2 feet long. There's big signs all over that say, don't eat the trout. They're contaminated with PCBs. Don't eat them. But people are fishing. The lake's not dead anymore. It's recovering. Fast forward another 4 or 5 years, maybe a little longer. Now the signs are down. It's still thriving. That harbor that used to be vacant, there was nothing in it, is getting filled up with boats. Now there's this huge sign that says Salmon Capital of the Great Lakes. Fast forward till today, now we're 30 plus years or 40 years after, it's still like that. It stayed all right. It stayed all right. My point is resilient. People thought it was dead. People gave up. People weren't going to do anything about it. There were some creative people, scientists, politicians, private citizens, wealthy people, poor people, who did all kinds of things in a relatively short period of time, less than 20 years, to take what was a dead lake, a dead system, and turn it into something vibrant. Third key, manage for minimal future input. It's a pretty cool little drawing over on the right. I'm not going to talk about it in detail, but don't manage where you've got to put a lot into the system as it goes along, but manage for minimal. Use stun. That's stolen from Mark Shepard, by the way, and if you know what that means, put that in the chat. I'm not going to say it. Let's see who puts it in, and Mark and others can tell me later, and then I'm going to kill with the rest of them. So what does stun mean? I'll define it in just a minute. Manage the entire ecosystem that impacts your specific community. Don't manage populations and individuals. This is an ecology lesson. And what is an individual? So I'm going to talk about aquatic organisms. So if a yellow perch, an individual yellow perch, that's an individual. A population of yellow perch would be all of those yellow perch in a given body of water. So in my case, in a pond. A community of yellow perch would be those that are in multiple ponds, multiple populations that impact each other in some way. They might interbreed at some points. They might be having nutrients that go back and forth between them, but they're definitely and obviously interrelated. That's a community. Finally, the ecosystem is all of that area that is impacting that community. So in my case, it's a drainage basin. We're going to see pictures of it. You're going to see how that happens. People typically manage individual organisms or populations. Good ecologists manage ecosystems. So we're going to talk about how we manage an ecosystem. Here's a big one. Don't worry about maximizing productivity. I don't care whether I have 4,000 pounds of cow-calf units per acre on my land and my neighbor only has 1,000. I'm better. I don't want that. I want to be balanced. I want to optimize ecological balance. Key number 4, harvest what's available. So I put this little picture of a fairy over here because it's kind of cool. It means that you need to have a fairy kind of attitude. You need to be a little bit laissez-faire. You need to do something that says, I might not get what I wanted, but I'm going to get something. I'm going to get something cool. Always look towards diversity. Don't worry if it's different than what you planned. Be creative. Let the system tell you what you can get. And then finally, 5, this one's the most important, reap the rewards. This is actually a proverb that comes from biblical writings, from the Quran, it comes from the Torah, it comes from lots of places. And that's work with joy, not happiness. Oh, by the way, I got to go back and define stun. I'll get back to that in a second. Joy is not the same as happiness. Joy means you've got this inner peace, something that's inside you. Because you're not always happy. I don't know about you, but I'm not always just happy for the moment. But I hope that I have this joy. And I want to live with joy. Because sometimes I'm not happy. Most of the time I am. And if you have that, here's the proverb. It'll make you mature and complete. And by doing that, work becomes play, profits measured by legacy and by the people you touch and not by dollars. So if you heard something a little different in those 5 keys, and maybe you hear it normally, throw some 1s into the chat. If that was just kind of what you've heard, throw some 9s in. But I think maybe you heard 1 or 2 things there that might be a little different. So we're going to go ahead now and we're going to break these things down and we're going to talk about my own property. I'm going to go really fast now. And I'm going to go through some things that you're going to go, oh, will you go back and talk about that? I don't have enough time. I would love to talk about you more in the context of this little offer that I'm going to give, because I'm doing 10 different webinars this week. I'm not the speaker on, but I'm hosting 10 of these, 10 more that are like this, that are in everything you can imagine as it relates to making this planet better. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And I'm going to start with some slides here. So we're going to go to the keys, but I'm going to switch here, and I'm going to put some slides up. And I'm going to show you what my farm looks like today. So I'm going to switch from one of my monitors to another. You guys tell me if you see what looks like a bird up in the air. It'll come. It's going to be a tiny little bit delayed. There it is. Yep, you're seeing it. I'm going to move my webcam out of here.
I see the bird.
Cool. That's an eagle, by the way. That's a bald eagle. It's quite a ways up. That's what it looked like about 2 hours ago here. There's the eagle a little closer. This is what my neighbor's property looks like. This is not mine. This is an overgrazed cattle pasture. That is a pond right behind. That's a dam right there that my cursor's running through. The water should be flowing out of it. It's full to the brim, and yet water's not flowing. This is a stream bed right here. That's what my farm looked like 11 years ago. Overgrazed. Look at this, all through here. It looks like, and there's a prairie dog town that's up here that's helping, but this is way too many horses on this property, and it's a horse ranch. There's a little bit farther away. You can see what's going on with it. This is the dead of winter, by the way, everybody. There's that pond. You can see it's still frozen. There's ice on it. There's another view of it. This is the road going towards my property. My property starts in the distance here. This is still the neighbors. Notice how this has been kind of mowed down by the horses. Still off the property. We're moving towards it. I'm going to go kind of quick through these. Still off of it. Actually, what I asked Brian, so I had my videographer take this. This is the start of the stream. You can see it's a little wet here. This is what I saw kind of 11 years ago that gave me that, remember the history I talked about and observation? So I came to this property, looked at it, and I liked some of it, but I didn't like a lot, and I didn't like what it was so dry, but I thought that it might be able to be developed to get something nice. Sorry about this warning here. I'm going to get rid of that. Now we're getting real close. This is actually, look at the difference in this. This is a field that I manage. This isn't on our property, but it's immediately adjacent to it. This is a wetland that is just off the edge of our property. He's actually moving away from it a little bit now, and now we're moving down. Now you can see it becomes a pond at that end. Now we're on our property. Does that look a little different? That field gets grazed appropriately. That is a lush, arid, middle of winter field. This is where we live. There are 36 pallet building sheds up here. This is a converted asbestos remediation building that was turned into a greenhouse. There are aquaponic systems all over here. This is a converted 72-foot long mobile home that is a barn for alpacas and goats and chickens. This is a modular home. This is where I live, and I'm not going to talk a lot more about that. We could have a bunch of other presentations. This is our property now. This was grazed just the end of winter, but look how lush that grass is. This is how we want it to be going into winter. That's an art subject. We think beauty has to go along with management of property also. This is from where this picture is down to right here is about 1/3 of a mile to give you a perspective of distance. Now a little more than that, between 1/3 and 1/2. That's a barn on an adjacent parcel. That's also the land we manage. We actually sold the land rights to a neighbor that has a home that's up the hill. This we put plastic around this, and we operate this as a TP aquaponics system in the summer. This has got a little trench that's around here, and there's subsurface water right below here, and we don't have to add anything to it. And we grow plants, and we have fish that grow in a system that surrounds this little teepee. It's just a little farther perspective of it. I'm just going to quickly go through these slides. There are 11 different ponds you're going to see here. This was this morning. This is our topmost farm. The water comes onto the property right underneath where this is. Right now it's flowing about 1/10 of a cubic foot per second, and we're in the middle of a drought still. That's the first pond. It's probably about 1/4 of an acre. Remember, visualization is tough in slides. This is where we grow koi. We'll talk about that later, but we harvest about 1,000 koi every year. You can see some pictures of them. We sell them to pet stores up and down the Front Range here. We made $20,000 in this last year for 1 day of harvesting. We don't feed them. We don't do anything with them other than manage the land around them. This is a temporary fence that you can see here, electric fence, where we do grazing of our animals and manage this pasture, that's the ecosystem immediately adjacent to these ponds. There's some koi, if you look carefully in the background there. There's going to be a couple more pictures of them. They don't like to be visible. That's why they live. They know how to be smart. These are 4 to 6 inch fishes that we'll harvest next year. There's about 3,000 in the population. We harvest about 1,000 of them every year. They self-populate. These were stocked in here 5 years ago. There's a much better view of them. They're swimming around in here. Ice just came out of this pond probably yesterday or the day before. There's another view of them, and a little bit more. This is the next pond down in the system. This is also a koi pond. And these ponds are all isolated by drain systems to where the fish, unless they flood, the fish can't move back and forth between them. This is the next pond down. This is a pond that has large and smallmouth bass and yellow perch that is used for a combination of fishing and commercial fish production and dog training. By the way, that last pond is also, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. A few more koi. We get some escapees of koi, and this were actually in a lower pond. Koi are like our canaries. You can see them. They're orange, and we can always tell how healthy our system is by looking at the koi. This is a little larger pond, probably about 1/3 of an acre, where it's exclusively large and smallmouth bass and yellow perch. Still the same pond, looking more closely at it. This is one where we actually did some excavation in the fall. We did it for a workshop on ecological aquaculture, and this is going to be made into a mound where we stand up on top of it and we train dogs throughout this area. And it's not finished yet because we'll do that work during the dead of winter when it hits in the next month or so. And this is, again, downgrading. Our property is all of what you're seeing here down this valley. That same pond from just a different perspective, another pond there. Again, another view. This is just a little further down the system. This is about a half an acre pond, again, primarily large and smallmouth bass. This is water flow going through, leaving a pond that's just above. This is actually duckweed and algae that's growing here. This can be used for livestock feed in the middle of the winter. We'll harvest this and we'll feed this to chickens and to other livestock. This is a bigger drain that's going out of the last pond we had before, a 3-acre pond, which is what this one is right here. This is the biggest one in the system. Ice, you can see as the deeper we go, the farther there's now more ice that's around these ponds. This is that one that I had. This is actually a little out of order from a couple slides before. That's just looking down on it a little bit further. Now we're seeing the bigger pond. Along this side over here, we have an event center area, a gazebo, where we hold all kinds of events, weddings, family reunions. We have several big, what we call sustainability events. This is a fire pit over here. Beautiful area. We hold fishing tournaments. Professional fishermen come out and fish. And I mentioned dog training. I'm going to talk more about that later. This is ice still on this deeper pond. This is 18 feet deep right down here in the bottom. It's 6 feet deep throughout most of the rest of it. And there are a number of islands and peninsulas on it. This is one of the peninsulas going out right here on your right. Still ice, as you can see, on this pond. Now looking at a little different perspective, a little dock. We've got a boat that we have out on it. Actually, yeah, the boat's out in the water again. We had taken it out, but it's not floating today. This is the first time that we've had ice out right around here. So looking up at our property goes all the way up around about this far up on this ridge to the right. This is down below the pond, the big pond. This is an area where we harvest watercress. There's about a mile of stream here that we harvest enough watercress on to feed, basically supply all the stores up and down the Front Range in northern Colorado, or actually all the way from Denver north. It's all done foraging. We don't plant anything, we just manage it. So it's harvestable today. That's watercress growing all around there. Watercress sells for about $4 an ounce. A view of that dam. This is on the dam of that bigger pond, looking back up to our livestock, and our home is back up this way further. That's where we started. Just a couple last quick views, kind of a cool picture at a wide angle. This is one of the things we grow here. We have a large herd of alpacas. This happens to be moms and babies. These are all 3 youngsters right here, probably about 4 or 5 months old. That's a mom, a little bit in the background there. This is sort of our big stud animal. His name's Snowmass Matrix, and he's the guy who we breed to a lot of our females. Just going to go quickly through this. All right, that's the end there. Let's switch back to the other screen again. Time is it? No, we're in good shape. All right, move my webcam back to this other monitor, and we'll just continue on here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my history because it'll help you, not because I care at all about whether you know about me. I want you to think about yourself. I guarantee if you're 18 years old, you've got something in your past that you can dig on, that you can find as a history that will help you figure out how you can manage your future ecologically in a balanced way and to do some things that are good for the planet. Mine's a little bit longer. It's kind of a lifetime journey of about 60 years. I'm going to go through the bullets fast here, then I'm going to show you some slides of some of what's going to see on here. So I grew up in a place called the Antelope Valley, north of Los Angeles, where it was called the alfalfa capital of California. That's relevant, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. I went to high school 2 years there, and then I moved down to farther south, and I lived on the beach in Huntington Beach for my last 2 years of high school. I was able to meet a guy named Dr. Hubbs, and I'll talk a little more about him later. He became the most important mentor in my life when I was still a junior and senior in high school, and he continued until he died. So I was a senior in 1969, he died in 1979. He is really important. I'll give a bonus to anybody that's not somebody that's been in my other webinars, any new person that puts in what Dr. Hubbs is known for. He's famous for something. I'll talk about that. By the way, back to stun. I almost forgot. Stun is strikingly terrific utter neglect. That's a Mark Shepard word. That's what we use to manage things here. Strikingly terrific utter neglect. I'll talk more about that. After high school, I went through college at a couple different places and ultimately ended up at Scripps Institute of Oceanography, and I met a guy named Steve Serpling, and he's going to be important, another mentor of mine. Now, he wasn't a lot older than me, probably only 3 or 4 years older than me. He is the rock star of aquaculture in the world, probably the smartest man I ever met. Unfortunately, he died way too young in a car incident when he was in his 40s. But today, he's considered the Albert Einstein even of aquaculture. I went to the University of Idaho to get a PhD after being at Scripps because I wanted to learn freshwater ecology. That's significant in my story because of where I live. I was able to live on a homestead location, and I took an overgrazed cattle field back 40 years ago and turned it into something that I increased its value by 4 times. So I bought it, give you a little bit of time, for $10,000. 3 years later, I sold it for 40. It wasn't that I had improved the land, the home. No, it was a double-wide mobile home. I improved the land. I built a pond system. I got rid of grazing that was going on. I created a market farm situation. This was 40 years ago. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I just was trying to live off the land. And then I founded a company called ATC. It's only relevant as a part of my story because it moved me into another part of my life that also is really important, and it's what's my mentality related to things. And that is that I was around to be a part of a founder back in the early 90s of something called brownfield. I'm going to show some pictures of what that means. 11 years ago, I moved to this property you just saw a whole bunch of slides on. When I first saw it in the middle of the summer, it looked like what you saw. That's how dead it was with those properties. There was nothing there. It was an overgrazed cattle field. There was no stream. That stream didn't exist. It runs year-round. We're in a little bit of a drought. It never stops running. My ponds don't vary in elevation or at all because it's got a stable system. There's a series of springs. History showed me that those springs were there. I developed those springs. That is the latter part of the story that I'm going to finish with. So Northern Colorado and Mountain Sky Ranch were a big piece of this. So we had looked at over 100 properties. So we had a year, almost 2 years of history. We had a criteria. We lived in southeast Denver. We wanted to live north of Denver where we could have water to train dogs on. And that's relevant. And we weren't thinking about aquaculture. We weren't thinking about sustainable land. We wanted to be able to be near our friends, which were north, and we're only about an hour from where we were previously. But we wanted, and we looked at 100 properties. We missed all of them. The real estate was hot. We either couldn't afford them or we couldn't get a deal done on them. Finally, we found this one. It had been on the market for a year because it was so degraded. It was a wonderful location, but nobody wanted the property. We researched its past. I researched water rights. I knew that it had been a marijuana farm previously, and we used satellite imagery, and we found there was mineral rights. We found there was water rights, and the other people before us didn't even know they were there. Before we did anything else, we came back and forth and we observed it for 6 months. And we saw what it was doing, and then we compared that to the past. I'm going to show pictures of that in just a minute. And then we used professional knowledge, and I had a little more of it maybe than some do, to develop a plan. And that plan was for dog training, fishing, beauty, eco-community, no thoughts of aquaculture. Aquaculture came later. So I'm going to switch now. Before I get to the next one, I'm going to show you some other slides real quick. So I'm going to switch my screen. Move the webcam out of the way. And I'm going to take me just a second to pull up another set of slides.
I see Thomas Edison.
Yeah, you got it. Raleigh, yes. So this is a video from out last fall here at the ranch where we had an event called Celebrate Sustainability, where we had a fishing tournament. We caught over 350 smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, and yellow perch. And just listen to this. If you don't hear the sound, don't worry about that. It's mainly what you're seeing. I'll kind of narrate over it too.
All right, try playing it. I can't quite see the video.
It comes a little late. It'll come on in just a second.
Okay, cool.
You know what? Maybe I need this. I didn't get the screen switch. Let's see. Sure. Oops, I didn't get the screen switch. Now it's going to switch. I'm going to stop it.
Cool. Now I can see some.
Yeah,
Everybody,
yeah,
let me know if you can see the video.
I didn't have the screen switch, so I'm going to play that now.
Yeah, start again. Thank you.
All right, there we go. And don't worry about the sound. It's just people milling around. I'll narrate over it. So this is a fishing tournament that occurred on the 24th of September. It was fall already. You can see the grass is dying off. This is across that pond that we saw earlier. And you're just going to see what's happening. This is probably about a pound-and-a-half smallmouth bass. We caught over 350 fish in 2 hours. I am fin clipping this fish, marking it so I can determine what the population of this pond is. We did a recovery the following day. You make mistakes. You drop fish sometimes. I'm failing forward. Now I'm going to put it in a container because that's what she was using.
Yeah, you got a choice to make here. Yeah, it's not much of one, but you got to make it. Come up here and tell me because I think it's pretty obvious.
She's picking which fish to keep because she was going to be judged by 5 fish. By the way, she ended up winning this contest. She beat a bunch of guys. She was the one woman. She beat a bunch of men. It's really cool. So, oops, I show that. I'm going to show several other videos here that are going to be related to the ranch. But I mainly wanted you to see something because we generate about $10,000 a year on fishing. It's my passion. I love to fish. I was fishing there too. Because in that pond that's right in front there, there are 11 to 12,000 fish that are over catchable size being a half pound and above. We'll harvest about 1,000 of them a year that we sell to commercial, to chefs and to caterers. And then we have fun fishing. We have professional fishermen and we have contests. And most importantly, and you can see I put it on another slide, it's priceless. We bring in little kids and we let people fish for the first time they've ever fished in their lives. And they love it. Sorry. Anyway, that's one of the things that we do. Now I'm going to show you a little slideshow here of kind of a history of our ranch since we bought it because that's where I was on here. And then we're going to move to construction. And some of the things that why we do what we do. This is lettuce in an aquaponics system, and you're going to see a bunch of slides. I'm going to go through these quickly. This is microgreens, called hydroponic microgreens. They're fodder, fed for livestock. This is in a warehouse research facility that we have. That's my son, actually, in our first generation. This is 7 years ago of a hydroponics microgreen system. These are the microgreens, kind of a cool picture. That's a shrimp. We grow shrimp, inland shrimp, in a greenhouse situation in this part of the world. We were using this to learn what to do ecologically on the ranch. This is not ecological aquaculture that we're doing here. There's our shrimp production. That's an oxygen meter, and that's my son again and one of our interns. There are 5,000 shrimp living in that pond behind it. Some other of the microgreens. There's a saltwater aquarium that we have that looks straight through, and actually that's freshwater. That's why am I not remember the name of that fish right now? Kind of cool. You can see right through it and see. So we were on one side of it, and you're looking through into our production area over on the other side. Here's our greenhouse operation. At one time, we had the largest aquaponics system west of the Mississippi River. This is just some of our staff. These pictures are from 6-7 years ago, some of them. Oh, let me show you that one. Here's the way I want you to do it. Think ecologically. That's a Dixie cup. That grows plants just as well as a 30-cent pot, hydro pot. That costs a penny. The hydro pots cost 30 cents. That's what we teach. Those are blue barrels in a small aquaponics system. This is our small greenhouse where we do a number of different research with a variety of different things. This is not necessarily ecological aquaculture, by the way. You could argue that it was. There's kind of some of the food that we get from it. There's some others. Here's one of the interns. This is people doing tours. Dog training. I talked about that. This was 7 years ago. This dog's 14 and a half years old right now. His name's Sky. He's my buddy. He's not sitting under me right now. But that's after a pasture's been grazed all summer. Look at what condition it's in. It's just excellent. This is arid west. And that was 6 years ago. Better today. This is one of our alpacas. This is a booth at some event. I'm not even sure what event that we were at, of things that we do to show people what we do around here. Notice it says, sign up to feed the baby alpaca. And there's the baby alpaca, a little kid that's feeding it. Some other lettuce. This is one of our interns. People are happy here. This is in the shrimp production. There's all kinds of tanks over here on this side of this greenhouse. You can see, there's the timing. That was 1/13/2010. That's like 7 years ago. Wow, time flies. More of the shrimp operation. We bring that alpacas in the house sometime. I wish I could say this was a good circumstance. This was because this one wasn't feeling real good, and that's actually one of our help. She's now a veterinarian. We're really proud of what she's done. We have what we call a wall of fame, where people that come here work with us, and we've had 120 of them over the last 10 years, if they just stay in the field, if they just keep working in the area. I'm sorry, I had the phone turned around. They just keep working in the field. They keep being economic. They stay on the wall of fame. There's over 120 of them. And this Julie's one of them. Everybody has seen in the pictures so far. This is another greenhouse where this was a raft system, a University of Virgin Islands aquaculture system. Our alpacas in winter, this could look just like it would today when it was snow a week ago here. This is 10 years ago probably. So there's a shrimp again. There's just a cool picture of some alpacas. We have a quarry here. That's actually one of the first things that I saw. I was really negative about it. I didn't want to have a rock quarry. That's awful. We don't mine rock. We farm it and we restore the land. That's not the way I thought it was done, and not the way it's done in most places. That's the way we've decided to do it. This is a picture from on the top of it. That's a big pit that's underneath there. This is a 100-foot cliff. There's some ropes. I'm a rock climber. We have huge rock climbing activity here. We make fun out of what other people think is awful. I think that's the last slide there. All right, so we're going to switch back to the other screen. And I am just about done. We're going to quickly go through this last couple of slides. Come on. I'm being impatient, trying to click too quick. There it is. Go back to the screen. I'm going to move the... Oh, it tells me I have something else in 10 minutes. Go back to the ecological aquaculture. Shoot, I'm going to have to start. Man, I'm going to, oh, here we are. So remember, I said, got to go back to the view. It's going to take a second. You guys getting anything out of this? Put some ones in. Raleigh, tell me if people are putting ones in. Are they learning anything?
Yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Oh yeah, you're getting a lot of ones. A lot of ones.
Cool. Raleigh, you got any questions real quick while this is loading? This will take just a second.
Oh man, I got a ton of questions for you.
All right, well, we'll get those later.
How did a lot of questions have been asking me? How did you find the ways to research how it was historically beforehand?
Yeah, and in this course that I'm going to talk about a little later, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. But we went to the county and we went through titles all the way back to where the land was homesteaded. So that's the first thing that we did. We then went to online. You can do it now, but I went to the USGS And I got as far back as I could get of topographic maps, which took us back to the early 1900s. I think the earliest that we got was from 1910. You can get those online in many cases, and you can get them for really inexpensive or free. We then used some imagery called geotarg, and the USGS has a facility back in South Dakota where I know some people at, and I can help you guys get this too, that's got satellite imagery back to the 1950s. So we have that. And then we went even farther back, and we went to the Museum of Science and Industry in Denver, and we just checked with some of the museum curators. I didn't have any connections there. I didn't know anybody there. I just started asking some people, could you get me some, Pleistocene data about the area? I wanted to know, was it woolly mammoths that were hanging out here, or was it giraffes? So that's where we went, and we're going to teach exactly how we do a lot of that in the course that we'll talk about in a minute.
Oh man, very cool stuff.
All right, so remember I said key number 2, you've gotten past the design now. I showed a lot of that. Now I'm gonna go really fast here, and I'll be done in about 5 minutes with the rest of this. Construct by failing forward. So I'm just gonna quickly go. So think about this fact and live it minute for minute, all right? You can't change the past, but you can learn from it. This guy here, and probably already spilled it, that was Thomas Edison. Make everything you do the best you can do it. Wow, I didn't used to think this way. And I have to wake up every morning and think about it, meaning I want to give you my best this instant and not worry about what I did 5 minutes ago and plan for what I do 5 minutes in front, but I want to be the best. I showed a little bit of emotion earlier as it related to kids, because I've got grandkids, and I want them to grow up on a planet that they're feeling good about. And I'm not sure they're going to, the way things are going right now, unless we dig in and we do things for it. So I feel that emotion, and I want to show it, because that's living minute to minute. Dream big dreams. This guy could dream, man. He knew that we could develop this thing called a light bulb. And don't be frustrated by failing. There is nothing wrong with failing. You can learn from it. Just try to avoid failure, which is quitting. So, Thomas Edison here. And this was a quote from him. You've probably all seen it. I did not invent the light bulb. I just found 9,999 ways not to invent it. And then I got lucky one time. Well, that's what we've done here at this farm. I could tell you stories for hours of things that we screwed up. I could also tell you stories from a couple more about 1 or 2 things that we did right. We failed a lot. We failed forward. Whenever you find yourself slipping backwards, find an action that energizes you. In my case, it's sports. In your case, it might be meditation, exercise, reading. Just, if you can, stop doing what you're doing and go do whatever that thing is for just a little bit of time. But get you back on that failing forward track again. So now I'm going to talk about what we did here in some detail, just real quick. We eliminated grazing for the first 2 years, let the land rest. Got rid of those cows, got rid of those horses. By the way, one of the negatives were we had illegal cattle coming up the valley. We almost had a gunfight with a neighbor that's miles away who thought he owned our land. Well, in Colorado, unless you're fenced, that's true. This is open range out here. And it was my fault. I screwed up. I failed forward. I had to put fencing up to keep his cattle out. That was my responsibility. We opened up springs. This is where I had some professional knowledge. I knew when I looked at this land there were springs there. This water was escaping those cows. And we just had to open them up. We had to figure out how to get that water up out of the ground. We only expanded 1 pond initially. And we didn't do it for aquaculture. We did it for dog training and fishing. Remember I showed you the slides. We were doing aquaponics at warehouses and greenhouses, and we were using what we learned from doing that to what we could apply here. That's going to fast forward to the aquaculture later. We planted some rainbow trout. They don't live here naturally because we wanted them for fishing. And that was kind of a success, kind of a failure. We learned that the buggers eat just about everything, and they were eating our little smallmouth bass and largemouth bass. So we kept them for 2 or 3 years. We caught some big ones. They don't reproduce. They're not natural. There is not a stun that you can use with them. So that was not smart. But we had fun with it. We learned from it. And out of it, we got a whole bunch of professional fishermen that wanted to come here and bring clients to catch 8-pound trout who, when we got rid of the trout, said, we don't care about the 8-pound trout, we just want your pond. So you're going to see later, that happened out of making mistakes, out of failing. The biggest thing we did is we managed the upstream ecosystem. And I didn't show the details of it, but we have the ability to do that. I showed you that one field that wasn't on our property. That's our drainage coming in. We managed that. We got permission from our neighbors to do something good for their land, and they loved it. And we improved the value of their property. But we really were trying to improve ours also. And then we opened up more springs. I'm kind of taking you through time here. Then we started mob grazing. So in that process, we got alpacas. We didn't even know what an alpaca was prior to that. And there's a whole story there. And we started doing mob grazing. We knew that you couldn't just let them run all the time. They'd graze it to the ground. So we put up temporary fences and we'd graze one little area for 2 days, 3 days, and we'd move it to one just next to it. We just started doing that. We didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know who Mark Shepard was. I didn't know Wes Jackson. I didn't know the Savory Institute. We were just doing what made sense. We built 18 ponds. One of the things we did do is we did that right. We knew what we were doing there. We made them like bathtubs. We made them 7 feet deep so they would never winter kill or summer kill. And we made steep sides so we could use nets and get fish out of them. We started to think about the future. We observed. We watched. What's happening? We always created beauty. That's important. A lot of people do ecological management and they don't think about beauty. People like beauty. I wanted people to come here and love it. Not just myself, but I wanted my grandchildren to love it and others that would come here. I'm not an artist, by the way. I'm married to one, so she's the one that keeps me on track. I want to have everything straight. I'm an engineer. I don't like the fact that door is open behind me in the picture. We started catching bass. That was important because that became the future. We're only 6 ounces away from the state record smallmouth bass. I have people that come from all over the country to catch the state record smallmouth bass. Nobody's done it yet. They pay $500 a day to see if they can catch the state record smallmouth bass. We stocked a few. We stocked some yellow perch. There weren't any in the system. How'd we get them? We went and caught them. We went fishing. We went to try to catch the best way. And there's yellow perch all around, but we stocked them into the pond. We expanded the ponds over time. Better construction. They were silting in somewhat. That's the only thing we have to do to maintain them anymore. We just have to deal with the silt as it comes in. We fished. We trained dogs. We created beauty. We had fun. And we managed the ecosystem, which is not, we didn't manage the population. Never have managed a fish, ever. Never managed a population, managed the ecosystem. We rinsed and repeated. We did it over and over. We stocked ornamentals. That came only 3 years ago. Those were those koi that we stocked. We did them not because we thought we could make any money from them. We did them because we wanted those canaries. We knew they'd get eaten if we had the bass around, but we wanted to know by seeing them if the water was healthy. The problem with aquatic animals versus cattle is you can see when a cattle is sick. You can't see it when a cow is sick. You can't see when a fish is sick. They go down and they want to get out of your view. They don't want to be seen. If they're smart, they don't want to get eaten by eagles or great blue herons, which we have here. By the way, what do you think we do with great blue herons? We shoot them because they're eating our fish. It's legal in the state of Colorado to shoot a protected species if they're endangering livestock. Our livestock are our shrimp and our fish. I'm pointing at shrimp because I have them in the other model. We stocked some more yellow perch. We sample the water on a regular basis because we teach people. So we do it and we have fun with it. And we manage for algae, zooplankton, invertebrates, and others. And this is all the more detail I want to get now. We open more new springs. We manage the fish densities. How do we manage them? By fishing. We catch 352 fish in a day. People take them home and eat them. And now we do electroshocking. We get 1,000 of them in the fall. We sell them to chefs. We make $20,000. But mainly we manage the ecosystem. We graze selectively. We mow. If we can't graze, we'll use mowing. And we produce hay from it. And then we do dog training. That's a key here. And we do perennial tree management. And then we manage nutrients only by knowing where they're coming from and seeing if we can somehow create vegetation so we can move them to somewhere else. We use movement of water through the kinds of techniques that people like Mark and others teach. I'm not a terrestrial guy. I don't know how. We hold events because we want to see if other people can enjoy this. Are we doing the right thing? Lastly, we harvest what is available. I mentioned all this. I'm going to go quickly. We do fishing for kids, public, and pros. We do a commercial harvest that I just mentioned. We do that once a year. We harvest ornamentals once a year. We do dog training, 150 days a year about. We harvest watercress. I talked about that earlier. We harvest duckweed that we feed to chickens. We have over 1,400 chickens that are up on the hillside that you didn't see in the picture. Another adventure we can talk about sometime. We do beauty. We have events. We irrigate. We have a market farm. We have water rights. Some of you wouldn't have those necessarily, and that's something we'll talk about in this course I'm going to talk about in a minute. I can teach you how you can do some things legally. And then finally, we reap the rewards. This is my last slide for this. Obviously, we're pretty biased about this, and this is evidence in our own lives, and we're seeing it in hundreds of other comments that we receive from members of our EAT community. People want to have eco-friendly, earth-friendly lifestyles, and they want to have long-term impacts. So I'm not going to go quickly here. I'm going to talk about this later. You can do this in your own life. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to move off grid or stop farming. You could do that in your windowsill. You can do it in your garden. You can recycle. You can reuse. You can do so much more. I'm just quickly going. So you can do by starting small, growing big. You can network with others with similar interests. There's so much power in collaboration. This is another key, the power of five. So I should have taken that out. This is important though. As Nike says, just do it. Excuses are like armpits. We all have two of them, and they both stink. So now, what are our rewards here specifically? Let's talk about the economics. We harvest 1,000 fish a year. We sell them for $20 each, $20,000. We do dog training for 150 days. We average 100 a day. It's actually a lot more than that on some days. We make 15,000. I train with them. I used to pay a pro $1,000 a month to do it. I get paid to train today, people from all over the country. We fish 50 days a year, which we charge for pros, $10,000. We do commercial aquaculture. As I said, we harvest once a year. We have events. We irrigate. Now, you say, well, wait a minute, you sell water? No, we save it. I'd have to buy it otherwise. You should learn that when you do something on your property and you generate for yourself, if you're harvesting your own food, you need to say that you made that money because you would have bought it at a store otherwise. So we irrigate that we would have to pay for otherwise. And then we have the thing that's priceless. We open the place up for kids fishing for at least that many days a year. Costs? It's fun. We only have one cost, some of the electricity for irrigation. How many of you do that with what you're doing? Future generations, legacy. Here's what calculations we've done. If things got bad and there was something we really had to prepare for, we can be completely off grid here. We can support 250 people living here indefinitely, as long as we didn't get a terrorist, somebody coming in with machine guns or bombs, forever off of this property and off of those ponds. No future development happening here, and much more. So I've told you the keys. Don't procrastinate. You can do something. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So this is a great little lead-in. Wow, I'm only about 10 minutes longer than I thought I'd be there. This is only going to last a few minutes. If you want to hear how I really do this or how we do it, put some ones in. And if you don't, just put some nines in and I won't do it. I'll stop right here and answer a question. Well, you don't have to tell me or mark if I'm getting any ones, because if I am, I'm going to go on and talk for just about another 10 minutes and show you some things. If not, I'll stop.
I'm seeing some ones. I'm seeing a lot of ones. I think you're in the clear.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm just going to do a little bit here.
Fantastic presentation so far, Wayne. Thank you so much. It's been really cool. Really cool.
Well, and Raleigh was here, everybody, so he can tell you, he said it earlier, and you were here late, too. It was fall by then. I mean, it was even after we did that event. Wait till you see it when it's green, which is from about April through September. It is really beautiful.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
So, here I always been taught that you should give people a promise at the front end, all right? So I'm going to show you a little plan, And here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to guarantee you that if you become a lifetime member of the Elite Eat community today, and I know we've got some of you that are actually out there in the audience, I've seen your names, you're going to get a special action plan for this ecological aquaculture that I was just talking about. And you're the only ones that are going to get this. This is just for this audience today. So that's kind of my big promise. You're going to be living those 5 T's. All right? So I'm going to go quick now. So a little background. In 2009, I started this Ecolonomics. I was asked by Dennis Weaver to take it over if he was dying. And I turned it down, and then I agreed to. And I had some big dreams and ideas. This is that pond system in a flood, by the way. I put this slide here. Remember the slide we saw when we started? This is what it looked like during our biggest flood in history, 1,000-year flood. It didn't get destroyed. Those waters were overflowing dams. We had some fish that moved around, but it was resilient. It stuck it in there. So last year in June, we formed something called the Economic Action Team, and we really simply said, we're going to just start teaching once a week. I'm going to teach a course once a week. No pitching. This is a pitch you're getting now. We don't pitch at all, ever. And I'm going to ask some friends if they'll do the same. Mark was my partner. I kind of pressured him a little bit. Mark has been teaching forest ecology for 40 weeks. He's never missed a week. He's been all over the world. He'll go out of his way to teach the course. If you look at what you would pay to get Mark's time, you can use him alone, 40 weeks, he's on for at least an hour and a half. He was on last night, an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half. He'll answer every question that he gets. You'd pay $100 to $200 an hour to get that. You do the math on that. You tell me what that's worth. We have 8 or 9 or 10 of those a week now. So in 8 months, we've got about 8,000 people who have chosen to become members for free. By the way, you guys are all going to become free members just by registering. So you're going to get everything that part of what I'm going to say here. You can come and watch Mark Shepard every week for free. And you'll get a replay for about a week after that. So we started doing that in June. And I wanted to show you what some people have said about that real quick. Nick Cudnick. Nick might be on here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to learn and to be involved in the Noble Project. I get emotional about this. Bryant Redhawk from the U.S. Absolutely one of the best and most comprehensive presentations on operating a small farm, the economies of it, and how to scale production I've ever seen. Bravo. I could show you hundreds of these, by the way. This one, I will get emotional. Marvin Weber, that's his family. Thank you so much, Wade, and all the presenters. This is the most information-rich group that I know, online or offline. I really appreciate being a part of EAT. I recommend lifetime membership in this group for anyone. This guy had to struggle to pay for his membership, and yet he's around. He might even be on here today. I recommend a lifetime membership in this group for anyone who wants to learn how to be productive and profitable in agriculture, or even simply homesteading or making a living from the land. Leslie in Spain. I'm almost positive Leslie's on here. Thanks for the invite, Wayne. Looking forward to learning from like-minded people. Thanks for giving us the fabulous opportunity to make a difference. Valerie Jordanov in Poland. Thank you for the admission of this immense knowledge base that you provide to your website. Keep up the good work. And I love this one. Lynn's pregnant right now, and this is her and her husband. I really enjoy being a part of this site. It's a site that is focusing on teaching people about living sustainably and healthy. I'm learning so much, well, in so many different things. So what I'm going to offer you today is a lifetime membership in this team. You're going to get instant access to this team with over 300 hours of teaching, coaching, and mentoring. World-class doer coaches. 10 presentations this week alone. This is what the website looks like that you're going to get access to. You're going to get a 6-week course on ecological aquaculture, brand new. It's going to be you're going to normally pay over $1,000 for that course alone. But you're going to get more than that. You're going to be able to come to a live workshop 2 days here at the ranch for your own personalized guidance. We'll charge over $500 just for that workshop. You're going to get that as a part of it. You're going to get instant access. Oh, sorry, go to the next slide. Keep moving. I got to get this done in 10 minutes. Come on, slide, move. If you're a member of this, you're going to hear from authorities like William Horvath. I'm just putting two of them. Hugh Goebel, Dr. Herbert Warren, who's a world expert on the immune system, Evan Folds in North Carolina, myself, that's not important, Mark Shepard, and people like the Sustainable Design class. That's why they partner with us. They're here on as many Thursdays as they can be. They're one of those 10 hours a week. Come on, switch slide quickly. Slide just slow me down. Come on. So the other thing is that there's 10 to 15 hours a week of live coaching and mentoring. That you can get for free also. But it's similar to what you get. We have people that are doing this rather than going to graduate school right now. There's an intimate Q&A every week with as many of the members of the community that we can be there. Our goal is not to teach, it's to help people build businesses. We also have detailed plans and templates from our coaches for topics on which they're teaching. We network with members all the time. This is a community. The ability to download video, audio from hundreds of hours, hundreds. There's literally 300 plus hours now. There'll be 15 more hours just this week. Every week we add more and more. And then we have live events all around the world. We're going to have one in Southern California later this spring. We had one at my ranch last fall. We're going to do them all over. There's a secret Facebook group that you can be in. If you were to put a value on that, that'd be about $10,000. You're not going to pay that. Don't worry about that. But that's what it's worth. We're going to give you a bonus for just this webinar. We don't give this to others. You can get a second membership. And I show a picture of a young kid here because I'm going to get a little emotional here. This is I took this picture of this young guy in Ghana several years ago. But you're going to get an extra membership just along with yours. And we hope that maybe you'll decide to give it away because we don't want to eliminate any fund from this. In our free community, if you fill out an application and can show you have economic need, we have yet to turn down anyone that has, you become a free member. And we get scholarships for you. So we go out, well, you could donate that one. You could support somebody that's helping feed this young guy wherever he's at, who's creating something, a business, not giving him food, he's teaching him to fish. I'm going to run out of time, so I'm going to go through this quickly. So that's $9,000 value, and that extra membership's another $100. You're going to get another bonus. You're going to get a platinum version of this ecological aquaculture course that I talked about. That includes step-by-step training. I'm going to tell you the details of all of what you just heard about. All of them, everything. I'll give you all that detailed information. And you're going to have your own project that you're going to be able to work on, and I'm going to help you, coach you on that individually. You're going to have weekly Q&A sessions. And then there'll be a live hands-on workshop just for people that register for this year. Otherwise, we're going to charge for it. At the end of that, there's going to be an ecological aquaculture technologist certificate. Big deal. I'll help you get a job, or I'll help you get into the industry. That's what it means to get a certificate, not like a degree. I was a college professor. I didn't show that earlier for a number of years. And you're going to get ongoing coaching. So that's usually $1,200 value. That's what we're going to sell that for after this. So if you look at those values again, that's what we're up to here. And then I'm going to give you a couple more bonuses. You're going to get to pick one of our coaches. A lot of you will pick Mark Shepard. I already know that. And you're going to get an hour of consultation with them. And we've got a whole bunch of others. You're going to discuss your own project, ask questions, make comments, do whatever. That's going to get scheduled. One more bonus. We're going to write a press release for you. I may have gone too fast here. Trying to get through this. And that doesn't maybe seem like a big deal for you, but it is. If you've got a business, press releases are huge. We have a special tool to do it. It'll get distributed around the world. We did one for a webinar we're doing later tonight. You'll find it all over. That webinar is on the first page of Google because of this press release that we did for it. I'm just going to go quickly through this. So bottom line, I'm going to just quickly through here. This is an over $12,000 value. We're not going to charge you that, nothing like that. But I'm going to just quickly, what should it be worth to you? Well, if you were to do the assignment that Mark Shepard's already given, that you could still do by getting access to his course, 40 weeks, essentially you're going to save yourself $7,000 to $10,000 that you would have paid somewhere else. William Horvath, the guy's amazing. If you go to his seminars, you're going to learn how you can save money on property that you buy. You take this ecological aquaculture course, what if you could make some money off the property that you have? Alternative health, what if you didn't get cancer? That might be priceless. So just to summarize all this, I'm going to be done. The way we're going to sell this to the public is $22.53. That's the price. But just because you guys came here today, just like Raleigh did with Elaine Ingham earlier, we told Raleigh we're going to make a huge discount. So we're going to give you another $1,000 off. So if you buy this course, which is the Economic Action Team Lifetime Membership, you're going to be able to buy it today for $1,253. This is going to expire by the 13th, which is Monday. That's a crazy good offer. Now, some of you can't afford that. I know that. So what if you did a 3-pay? We'll also do that, $427 today, and then $427 for each of the next 2 months. This is totally guaranteed. No questions, money back guarantees, refund if it doesn't fit for you. We're also going to do what we call a fast action bonus. For the first 10 people that do this, you're going to be hosted here at our ranch. Probably, if you want, can be during that workshop that we're going to do, that you'll be getting a membership. By buying this, you get that. You're going to eat with us in our house. You're going to be able to pick my brain for a whole day. My wife is the most amazing chef in the world. You're going to stay here. We'll pick you up at the airport, and you're going to hang with us. And then a couple more. Let's say none of that makes sense, but you just want this course. So we've got what's called a silver version of it. Normally, we're going to sell that for $347. You can get it today for $247. You just need to use this code. And I'm going to show you the website here in a second where that is. And this is the link to get to this whole offer. I'll show that in a second. And lastly, one last deal. Raleigh asked us to really do the best we could. This is not the best economics, by the way, but we're going to give you a chance to try this out if you want. For $2, using this code, SDMC2, $2, and using the same link, $2, you can just test this out, not the platinum course, but the raw version of our ecological aquaculture course for $2. And then it's going to be $75 a month thereafter. Now, the reason I said it's not the best deal, you can do the math on that. If you're still a member 2 years from now, you paid a lot more than the $1,200 that we had for the previous offer. But that's something that you can do. So I'm done. We're going to move into Q&A time now. And Mark, if you wouldn't mind, put it up on there what those links were, so that'll be, I'm going to throw to that slide. You can be looking at that for a minute. By the way, I told you there's some bonuses. There's still a bunch of you out there. We're going to give you all the slides from this. I'll send them to you in a link. And also,